At a family barbecue, my sister's kid got a brand new tablet. My daughter got a cracked old one wrapped in a newspaper. Mom said, "It's still usable, isn't it?" My sister smirked, "Be grateful she got anything." As my daughter held back tears, I just watched, but what happened an hour later silenced the whole backyard. "Why are you so upset?" "It's just a gift." Because it wasn't just a gift. It was a message. And you knew it. You're reading too much into things again. No, I'm not. I watched Lana try not to cry. I saw you smirk. And I said nothing because I didn't want to ruin the day. But what happened later? That wasn't an accident. I'm 38. My name is Ria. I'm a single mom to a bright, sweet 10-year-old daughter named Lana. I live in Santa Rosa, California. Life hasn't been easy, but I built a stable, if modest, life. I work full-time as a receptionist at a pediatric office, and I freelance on weekends doing some admin and transcription work to make ends meet. I divorced Lana's dad 5 years ago. He left me for someone he met at work, a woman named Petra who wore Lululemon and sold crystals. He skipped town 2 months after the divorce and hasn't called Lana in over 3 years. I had to pick myself up, rebuild our lives, and through that process, I became the version of myself I am today, independent, cautious, and frankly a little guarded. I come from a family that smiles big and hides their venom in the corners of their mouths. My older sister, Celeste, is the shining star. She's 42, married to Dorian, an accountant who probably files their taxes quarterly just for fun. They have one child, Blake, who's 11. They live in a big beige house in Mill Valley with a pool and solar panels and a double-door refrigerator you could probably walk into. Every year, my mom hosts a big summer barbecue in her backyard in Sonoma. It's nothing fancy, plastic chairs, overcooked burgers, and lukewarm potato salad, but it's tradition. We've been going since we were kids, and though I dread it every year, I keep showing up for Lana. She likes the energy, the sense of family, and she adores her grandma, even if the affection isn't always equally returned. I knew it was going to be a long day the moment we arrived. Celeste and Blake were already there, perched under the shade of the pergola. Blake had a brand new tablet in his hands, some high-end model with a detachable keyboard. Celeste was sipping white wine and wearing sunglasses indoors. Mom greeted Lana with a quick hug, barely noticing the bracelet Lana had made for her out of plastic beads. "Oh, that's cute," she said, before turning to refill the fruit bowl. "I brought a homemade pie, apple crumble, Lana's favorite." Nobody touched it. As the afternoon passed, people mingled, drinks flowed, and I kept a watchful eye on Lana. She mostly kept to herself, picking flowers near the fence and occasionally checking out Blake's tablet from a distance. She asked once, quietly, "Do you think I'll get one too someday?" I smiled and told her, "Maybe. One day. But you've got everything you need, right?" She nodded, but I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes. It broke something in me. Then, around 4 p.m., Mom stood up and clapped her hands. "Okay. Time for presents." I blinked. "Presents?" "Oh," she said, "just something small for the kids." Blake tore into his gift, a glossy box with a brand new tablet inside. His eyes lit up. Celeste made some offhand comments about his grades and rewarding achievement. People oohed and awed. Then Mom turned to Lana with a crumpled newspaper-wrapped item in her hand. She handed it to her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lana opened it slowly. Inside was a dusty, cracked Samsung tablet, maybe 5 years old. The screen was chipped in one corner. There was a sticky residue on the back, like it had been peeled off a desk. Lana blinked and tried to smile. "Thank you, Grandma." Mom shrugged. "It still works, doesn't it?" Celeste smirked. "Be grateful she got anything at all." And I just stood there. I didn't say anything. I felt like I was underwater, watching the moment happen in slow motion. Lana's cheeks flushed pink, her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. She just sat down on the grass with the tablet in her lap and stared at it like it had betrayed her. I kept telling myself not to make a scene. Not to give them the satisfaction. But it churned in my gut. The next hour passed in a haze. People chatted about house prices and school districts. Lana sat alone under the tree. She didn't want to play anymore. Then, the silence was broken. "Mom." "Mom." Blake shouted. We all turned. Blake's brand new tablet was in the birdbath. Screen down, half submerged in the water. Celeste ran over, screaming his name. "What happened?" "I don't know. I left it on the table." "Lana," he started, pointing. But Lana was still sitting under the tree, nowhere near the picnic table. That's when Jasper, a neighbor's kid, said in a clear voice, he threw it. He was mad 'cause Lana wouldn't let him see her tablet. He said hers was ugly. Everyone froze. Then he said, "I'll show her ugly," and threw him in the water. I swear, even the birds went silent. Celeste looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. She tried to laugh it off, but nobody joined in. Not this time. My mom just sat there, holding her wine glass like it had turned into a grenade. The atmosphere in the backyard shifted instantly. One moment it was casual conversations and clinking glasses, the next, it was dead air and people trying not to make eye contact. I could feel every eye flicker from Celeste to Blake, then over to Lana, who was still seated quietly beneath the tree with her hands folded in her lap. She hadn't moved. She hadn't said a word. Celeste crouched down next to Blake, trying to regain control of the narrative. "Honey, did you really throw it?" Her voice was that brittle, sugary tone she used when she was on the verge of embarrassment but not quite ready to admit it. "You didn't mean to, right?" Blake, red in the face now, stared hard at the grass. His ears were glowing. He didn't speak. "Blake," she said again, stern this time. Still nothing. Jasper, still munching a popsicle, shrugged. "I saw him do it. My mom says I shouldn't lie even if someone's feelings get hurt." Dorian, Celeste's husband, was off to the side, silent as ever. I noticed he had put his phone away, stopped scrolling. For once, he was paying attention to something in real time. Mom stood there, fidgeting with the edge of the tablecloth like it might anchor her back into a version of the day that hadn't just veered into awkward silence. No one looked at me. No one said sorry. No one moved to check on Lana. So I did. I walked over to her, crouched down next to her under the sycamore, and gently brushed a stray curl from her face. Her eyes looked up at me, searching, unsure. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded. I knew she wasn't. But she wasn't ready to talk about it. We sat like that for a while, just me and her, two quiet bodies in the corner of a yard that suddenly didn't feel like it was meant for us at all. People started peeling away from the patio one by one. Someone had to leave to get their dog. Another remembered a bake sale they forgot to prepare for. It didn't matter. The damage had already been done. No one said it outright, but everyone felt it, the hierarchy had cracked. Celeste tried to act like everything was fine, making a big show of cleaning up the drink station and calling out "Who wants seconds," like we were still in the middle of a celebration. But nobody responded. Even Dorian didn't help her. He just sat down on the bench, eyes on his shoes, jaw tight. Eventually, Mom called out, "Rhea, are you staying for dinner?" "No," I said, without turning. "We're heading home." She didn't reply. I don't think she knew what to say. I helped Lana to her feet, dusted off her dress, and took her hand. We walked past the table where the cracked old tablet still sat next to an untouched slice of my apple pie. I didn't bother talking either. As I opened the gate, I heard Celeste's voice again. "It's just a misunderstanding. Kids fight. They'll get over it." But this wasn't a fight between kids. This was a slow buildup of disregard, of imbalance, of subtle cruelties dressed up as jokes and lessons. And now that someone had finally called it out, Even if that someone was a 7-year-old boy with a sticky mouth and no filter, the curtain had lifted. And what was left behind wasn't pretty. That night, back home, Lana didn't want to talk much. She sat on the couch with her arms wrapped around a pillow, watching cartoons but not really watching. I bought her dinner, and she picked at it. Then I sat beside her and said, "I saw what happened today." She didn't look at me. It wasn't fair. And I should have said something sooner. She still didn't speak, but her lip quivered. "I want you to know," I added, "that next time, I won't stay quiet." She blinked up at me, slowly. A single tear slipped down her cheek, and then she leaned her head on my arm. We stayed like that for a long time. The days that followed were quieter than usual, but in that kind of way where silence takes on shape and weight, like fog settling over a town before a storm. Lana didn't talk about what happened. She didn't mention the cracked tablet. She didn't ask to visit Grandma or Blake or any of them. She went to school like normal. She did her homework. She smiled when she needed to. But I saw it, something had shifted in her. It wasn't just disappointment. It was that particular kind of bruising that happens when a kid realizes that fairness isn't always part of the equation, even from the people who are supposed to love you most. I wanted to call my mom. I kept picking up the phone and putting it down. Part of me wanted an apology. Part of me wanted to unload the hurt, the years of built-up slights and favoritism, the way she'd always given Celeste the benefit of the doubt and treated me like a cautionary tale. But the larger part of me? The one that was tired and over it? I just didn't want to have another conversation where I left feeling smaller than I came in. So I didn't call. And she didn't either. What surprised me, though, was Harris, my brother. He texted me the night after the barbecue. "That was messed up. I saw the whole thing." That was all he said, but it meant something. Harris doesn't usually get involved. He's the middle child, the peacemaker. Always played neutral while Celeste and I went back and forth, until neutrality just started looking like silent agreement. I texted him back, "Thanks." I wasn't sure anyone noticed. We noticed. She just always gets away with it. He called a few days later, invited Lana and me over for dinner. He and his wife, Samira, made spaghetti and meatballs and let Lana pick the movie. They didn't bring up the barbecue. They didn't need to. Just by treating her like a person who mattered, they did more for her than any apology could have. It was clear to me that Harris saw what Celeste had done, and maybe, for the first time, he wasn't willing to pretend it didn't happen. Then the group text started. Mom sent one on Wednesday, "Hope everyone's having a great week. Thinking of planning a small Sunday brunch, just us girls. Let me know." I ignored it. Celeste responded immediately, "Of course. Sounds lovely, count me in. I'll bring croissants." No mention of Blake. No mention of the barbecue. Like nothing had happened. That was the Stokewood family way: deny, deflect, and decorate over the cracks with charm and wine spritzers. 2 days later, Mom followed up. "Ria, sweetheart? Did you see my message?" I typed and deleted my reply at least 5 times. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to scream a little, honestly. Instead, I waited. And then I didn't respond at all. Celeste sent me a separate message the next morning. "Hey. I feel like things got weird at the barbecue. I hope you're not mad. Blake is really sorry about the tablet thing." I stared at that message for a long time. The phrasing, the tablet thing. Not about how he treated Lana. Not about what I said. It was always like that with Celeste. The details didn't matter as long as the surface looked good. That's what infuriated me the most. Not the cracked tablet. Not even Blake's tantrum. It was the way she smiled while Lana sat there trying not to cry. It was the way she watched my daughter get humiliated and didn't flinch. She had always been that way, charming in public, callous in private. And it had finally bled over into the next generation. I didn't respond to her either. A week passed. Then two. The silence stretched. It didn't feel good. But it felt necessary. Then came a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was softer than usual. Tired. Hi, Ria. I've been thinking a lot about that day. I think I messed up. I didn't mean to make Lana feel less than. I really didn't. I guess I wasn't thinking. I just had this old tablet lying around, and anyway, I understand if you're upset. I love you. Just call me if you feel like it. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. And yet, even as I replayed her words, I couldn't help but notice how she'd framed it. I didn't mean to make Lana feel less than. Not that she was treated unfairly, but she felt like she was. As though Lana's reaction, not the action itself, was the problem. Still, it made me feel something. Not quite forgiveness. But maybe softness around the edge of the anger. Lana asked me that night if we'd see Grandma soon. I asked her if she wanted to. She shrugged. I don't want Blake to be mean again. You know it wasn't your fault, right? I know, she said, but her voice dipped on the second word. No doubt, just tiredness. We didn't go to brunch. We didn't go the next time Mom invited us, either. Weeks turned to a month, and then one afternoon while we were out grocery shopping, Lana asked me out of the blue, why does Blake get better stuff? I wasn't ready for the question, but she asked it so calmly, like she wasn't angry, just trying to make sense of the rules. I knelt down next to her, right there in the cereal aisle, and said, sometimes people treat others unfairly because they think they can get away with it. And sometimes it's because they're afraid of what happens if they stop doing what they've always done. She frowned. That doesn't make sense. I smiled. It doesn't. But it's not your fault. She picked a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and nodded like she'd accepted that answer, for now. We walked on, but the conversation stayed with me. Later that night, after she went to bed, I opened the closet and found the old tablet. The cracked one. I hadn't thrown it away. I hadn't touched it since the barbecue. I turned it over in my hands. It is still powered on. Barely. I thought about all the times I stayed silent, letting things slide. The small humiliations I chalked up to that's just how they are. I'd thought I was protecting Lana from conflict. But maybe I was just teaching her how to swallow pain. That realization hit me harder than I expected. I knew then that something had to change, not just for Lana, but for me too. Change didn't happen overnight. The family didn't implode. There were no confrontations that ended in slammed doors or tearful apologies. That's not how people like my mom and Celeste operate. Their power lies in keeping things pleasant on the surface while letting the undercurrents carry the poison. But I decided I wasn't going to play the role I'd always played, the quiet, grateful one. The one who takes what's given, even when what's given is a hand-me-down wrapped in newspaper and insult. I didn't tell them off. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped showing up with my head down. The real shift started a couple of months later, in October, when the school my daughter attended had its annual Fall Family Festival. They invite families to set up small booths, games, crafts, baked goods, things like that. I signed Lana and myself up for a friendship bracelet booth. It was her idea. We spent 2 weekends stringing tiny glass beads into color-coded patterns and writing out a little board with what each color meant: blue for honesty, green for kindness, gold for courage. A few days before the event, I got a text from Celeste. Heard about the festival from Mom. Blake would love to go. Maybe we'll see you there, winky face. That was the thing about Celeste, she always phrased her intentions like coincidences. I didn't respond. Festival day came, and Lana and I set up our booth near the face painting station. The weather was perfect, cool enough for sweaters but sunny enough to keep the cider warm. Kids swarmed our table all morning. Lana was in her element, explaining the color codes, helping them pick beads. She'd blossomed. Slowly, quietly. The girl who once shrank beneath a sycamore was now confidently tying knots and answering questions like a pro. Then I saw them, Celeste, Blake, and Dorian, coming down the main path, holding a bag of kettle corn and looking perfectly polished, as always. They made a beeline toward our booth. "Rhea," Celeste called, big smile, sunglasses pushed back into her perfect blowout. "This is so cute. What a great little project." I smiled, just enough to pass. "Thanks. Lana's idea." Blake hovered by the edge of the table. Lana tensed. I could feel her shifting beside me, but she didn't stop what she was doing. Celeste leaned in, pretending to examine a bracelet. "Oh wow, such tiny beads. Must have taken forever." "It did," I said. "But worth it." "Blake, want to make one?" Celeste asked, nudging him forward. He glanced at Lana. She didn't speak to him, just handed him a strand of string and pointed to the chart. "Pick your colors," she said plainly. Blake hesitated, then awkwardly chose a few beads. Lana tied it together in silence. No jokes. No sarcasm. She handed it to him and turned back to the next kid in line. The whole exchange lasted maybe 2 minutes, but the temperature between them was ice cold. Celeste watched it all. Her smile twitched. Later that afternoon, something happened that would put everything into motion. The festival held a raffle, and one of the prizes was a brand new iPad, donated by a local business. Guess who won? Lana. She wasn't even expecting it. We hadn't planned to enter the raffle. But Harris had bought us a few tickets earlier, on a whim. They called her name over the loudspeaker, and she froze like she didn't believe it. When we walked up to the stage, people clapped, and I swear I could feel the heat of Celeste's glare from 10 yards away. Lana held the box like it was made of gold. She looked at me with wide eyes and whispered, "Do I get to keep it?" "You earned it," I said. And she had. Not just for the bracelet booth or the smile she wore all day, but for every time she stayed kind when she could have turned bitter. That iPad felt like karma giving her a wink. I thought that might be the end of it. A quiet, beautiful kind of justice. But it got better. The school newsletter came out the following week, and they'd featured a picture of our booth, Lana tying a bracelet on a little girl's wrist, me beside her, grinning. Under the photo was a blurb thanking Rhea and Lana Porter for their creativity and generosity. The next time Celeste texted, it wasn't a smirk disguised as curiosity. I was cautious. Saw the newsletter. That was really sweet. Blake loved the bracelet, BTW. Maybe you could help me set something like that up for his birthday? I stared at the message. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to answer. Instead, I forwarded it to Harris with a note, "She's rattled." He replied, "Good." Thanksgiving rolled around. Mom extended the usual invitation. I declined, politely. Told her Lana and I had made other plans, just the two of us. I didn't offer more. I didn't need to. The balance had shifted. For the first time, they were wondering what I was doing, not assuming I was waiting to be included. Christmas, same thing. Harris invited us over instead. Small gathering, just his family, us, and his in-laws. Peaceful, warm, easy. And that was the real revenge. No shouting. No revenge plots. Just letting the light in where it belonged. No longer shrinking. No longer apologizing for needing basic respect. Lana had a new tablet, a new confidence, and a mother who finally understood that standing up for her wasn't about confrontation, it was about protection. Celeste? She never changed completely. People like her rarely do. But the way she looked at me now? With caution. With consideration. She knew she couldn't toy with me anymore. She couldn't use her barbed smiles and thinly veiled comments without the risk of being called out, or worse, ignored. That was the best part. Because sometimes the most satisfying revenge is not giving people the satisfaction of your silence, your compliance, or your attendance. You just build something better, outside of them. And you make sure they hear about it.